Vale. Well, so welcome. Today is a different day, let's say. So I always present the sessions as the CEO of allWomen, but today I will be also in the other side as a student. So I'm very excited, and let's see how I manage both sides. And I think, I mean, we did this course in a very intensive, that's why it's called data analytics intensive, but I want to really say that it was like super intensive. We were all like working during the day, and then in the evening, we were all like learning data analytics and Python and all this like new and crazy stuff at the same time every day of the week. And then we sort of had vacation, but we had to do the project. So it's been pretty intense. And I think the title is very right. But I think, I don't know, we all did like, no, an express learning. And I think we've done like a pretty good job altogether. So today is about seeing the results of all this intensivity summer. Normally the way we work or the way we do this event is like every student has 8 minutes to present, and after these 8 minutes, the audience has time to do questions and answers. And the way you ask to ask a question, you write in the chat and say, "I have a question," and then we give you your turn to ask this question. And I think that's pretty much it for me. So, Danny, do you have anything else to add?
No, just to introduce Alba, who is the first one. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and then I can start.
Sorry, I didn't hear you properly. You were presenting me?
I just
Daniela?
introduced.
Okay. Okay, good. Because I mean, it got it, so I was like, okay, I don't know if it's me. Vale.
So, Alba, it's your turn. Let's go.
Okay. So just let me know if it's if my, because in the end I'm using my iPhone's internet because it got the other one was not good. So let me know if you are just hearing me well. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good. So let's start. Uh, 1 second. All right. Now it's okay for you?
Perfect.
Okay. So welcome to my project. The project is about earthquakes, and it's what to expect when you are expecting. So I'm Alba. I'm data analyst student. I work as an online marketing manager, and some facts about me is that vitamin D recovers me. And when I was little, I played basketball, but when I realized that I wouldn't be Michael Jordan, I decided to quit. to quit. So about this project, the data set contains information collected on worldwide earthquake that occurred between 1965 and 2016. And the data that contains is with earthquakes higher than the magnitude of 5.5. The question that I was trying to answer, or I was trying to bring some light, is what happened during this period with this natural phenomenon. Okay, so first of all, I would like to, first of going deeper on it, I would like to check some theoretic terms. So, for example, what's an earthquake? An earthquake is the sudden movement of the Earth, but with capital letters, because we are talking about the planet. We have 4 main causes that can cause an earthquake. One is tectonic, another is induced, volcanic, and collapse. From these 4 ones, 2 are provoked by the nature, and the 2 others are provoked by the human. Okay, so 1 second, that I don't want to start. Okay, so now that we have already reviewed some the theoretical terms, we are going to go with the analysis. That is the important thing. So here we have this interactive chart that, as you can see, for example, if you look at this image that we are in the 80s, we see that the Indic Ocean was having a lot of earthquakes happening, and also the Pacific side. So comparing different situations, I'm gonna start also. Comparing different situations, what we saw is that each decade has like a lot of earthquakes happening, but we saw the 80s, the Indic coast was most heavily affected, and from the 2000 onwards, the causes of nuclear explosions were almost null, and also in this last part of the period, Pacific coast increased its cases, as you can see here. It takes some time to finish. I'm gonna move on, because if not, I won't have time. So here we have another way to view the data. And in this way, it's not having the years evolving, but it's curious because you can see, as I mentioned before, that Pacific, the Pacific side and the Indic side are the most affected one, but the Indic one is quite higher than the Pacific. Okay, so if we look at the data, like based on the evolution of the years, and also according to the number of earthquakes and the magnitude, that the mean of the average of the magnitude, what we can see is that 2011 was the year with higher number of disasters. And also there were like 2 years, 2004 and 2011, where we can find the highest earthquakes according to magnitude. So here it's 2004, it's Sumatra, and 2011 is Japan, it's Tohoku. And also this earthquake, what produced was it triggered with a Fukushima nuclear power station disaster. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is that I create a workflow with the data, and here we can see the most relevant, the countries that are most repeated in the data set. That these are the top 5 countries with higher number of earthquakes during this period. We have Indonesia, Tonga, Japan, Papua New Guinea, and Chile. And you will, I guess you are asking yourself, where is Tonga? So Tonga is here in the Fiji and the Cook Island. Now we are looking, it's curious because if you look the data according to the average of magnitude, what we saw is that the countries are different. So we have these ones, Sudan, South Sudan, Niue, Armenia, Guinea. And what this is telling us is that although the other countries are the most affected one, it's not true that they have the highest level of magnitudes. So, and also maybe you are also asking yourself again, where is Niue? So here you have a location, and it's close to Tonga. Yeah, and it's also between Fiji and Cooks. So when I was analyzing the data, I found one thing really interesting, that was there are different types of earthquakes in this during this period, and one of them is a nuclear explosion, and we have had 175 nuclear explosions during these years that we are analyzing, and that's, I mean, it was something that surprised me. So I decided to go deeper into this fact and filter the data by it. So here we can see that the countries that are affected by this type of earthquake are these 5 ones. Another interesting thing that I found is that looking at the data by year, we saw that the Western countries stopped having nuclear explosions, maybe due to the end of the Cold War, sorry, and also after that being China the only country affected. So something interesting also is that the most well-known nuclear disasters do not appear. The reason why is because this data is considering as a nuclear explosion. It's different. It's the differentiating the nuclear explosion and the meltdown. And Chernobyl, for example, and Fukushima were meltdowns of the core, not nuclear explosions. Okay, and so my conclusions about this analysis is that Indic and Pacific coast are the most affected regions, that Indonesia and Chile are the most affected locations from these oceans, that nuclear explosions were huge during the 80s, and now we know the existence of 2 new countries. Thank you.
Very good.
Hi.
It's done.
Maybe I've been too quick. I don't know. I was like two, and I don't know if I was super quick. I mean, when I was measuring that, I was like almost in 8 minutes. But I mean, I don't know how much time I take for doing that. But yeah,
It was perfect. It was perfect.
okay.
And it was pretty clear. No, I knew that, and we know some more things linked to the earthquakes and nuclear explosions and so on. No?
Exactly.
So okay.
So now it's time for questions. I don't know if anyone has one.
I have one.
Okay.
How did you do this plot regarding the animation of the different years and the tectonics with Tableau or Python?
I was using Python. I found a piece of code in Kaggle, and I just tried to adapt this code to the data that I was having. And also I have problems with, because Python, as you told me, is not able to record this video. So I was just using a program to record it and put it on the presentation. For that reason, I'm starting on the 1981. And I mean, I'm losing a bit of part of but if not what's super, I mean, it takes 1.5 minutes to go to all the map.
No, because it was pretty nice, pretty cool. I think, my opinion.
Thank you.
I have a question. Why earthquakes?
I have to say that I was struggling with, I mean, when I was, Idoia knows, because every day I was thinking about, first I found a pretty good database about Amazonia, about the devastations and everything. So I started like working on it, but it was super difficult because it was all numeric, and I mean, with a lot of variables that I was not understanding. So I decided to go to see more, and I was checking like police shoots, I don't know, a lot of things about refugees, and in the end I found a Mexican database about earthquakes, and after this Mexican I found earthquakes worldwide, so I decided to go with this one. And my first thought was to go with the worldwide, and after that to go with the Mexican ones. But when I was analyzing this one, I found that Mexico was in the top, in the 10th position of the list. So it was not really linked. So I decided to go with this one, and also because I was like a lack of time. So yeah.
Okay, no, it was very interesting.
So I think it's super interesting because most of us tend to associate earthquakes with Mexico. At least in my case, Mexico, the Caribbean countries, and no, it's most of them, almost all of them are happening in the Australian coast and so on, no? And
Bueno,
it's
like Chile.
and Chile.
Yeah, one thing that I put in the presentation but I didn't mention is that from this period, I mean, each row is an earthquake in this data set, and we were having 23,000 rows. So we were having 23,000, more than 23,000 earthquakes during these years. I was like super surprised. And also I was trying to, one thing that I found that was a problem is that we were having, well, I was having a column that was the ISO country. And Idoia and I, we were thinking that maybe it would be good to have the country because not all of us has this knowledge about which ISO is. So we decided to do that, and it takes 12 hours to get the final file. So Idoia with her computer, because I was trying to do it and I thought that it was not working. It takes 12 hours to get this new column.
Fuck, for a column.
She was baptized in the data analysis or the data science because it's normal.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Well done.
Well done.
Well done.
Next one is going to be Lali.
Hi. I had to say that I'm really scared, so sorry.
Alba, you are sharing your screen.
Alba?
Great.
So,
You got this.
okay. Oh my God. Voy a mirar. Ya. No sé por qué no se ve nada. Oh my God. Un momentín. Perdón. Okay, now. Yeah. So, hi everyone, I'm Ladio Osorio. Well, I'm a student of the course of data analytics, and I'm Colombian. So, today I want to talk to you what about LGBTQ plus migrants. But before to start with my analysis, I want to give you some context. So, by the end of the 2019, 79.5 million of people was forcibly displaced. And in 2009, Spain included persecution for gender identity and sexual orientation as a constitutional ground for seeking. Actually, there are no official data about LGBTQ asylum seekers. So because of that, I took the decision to focus my analysis in our organization who specialize on LGBTQ asylum seekers, that is KIF. So KIF is an association of LGBTQ plus migrants and refugees. It was found in 2002 and is located here in Madrid, Spain. And well, KIF means all the same and comes from the Arabic. KIF works principally in these three topics: social intervention, sexual health, and HIV and incidents. So the data with I work has 677 entries, and it was for the last 4 years, including 2020 until July, and most of my information is categorical. So what I did first was analyze their services, and like you can see here, the two most frequent are social care and HIV quiz test. Yes, so with the objective of try to answer the main question, I focus on social care data. Here we can see the amount of people through these 4 years, and if we see people the year from 2018 to 2019, there is a huge step of the amount of people, but I think the most interesting fact that I see is that the people who was attending until July of 2020 is more than the half of the people that was attending in 2019. So, but well, which countries do people come from? So, as we can see, most of the people come from Latin America, and also some other come from Africa. So, to take a better look of the country, I make a top 6 of countries, and well, we see again that there is most of the country are from Latin America. So I question me why they are in the top. So I found these 3 reasons. It responds to the situation of their countries. Also, Spanish speakers choose it mostly for the language, and Spain is seen like a LGBTQ friendly country. Also, I analyzed like the gender and the sexual orientation, and we can see that the people who is most attended by KIF are cisexual men, that is closely related to the fact that the more of the sexual orientation are gay. And if you see the other data, they are closely related, also closely related. So regarding to the age range, we can see that most of the people are really young. So I decide to see the relation to sexual orientation and gender and age range, and we can see that there is a great variety of genders also in the youngest people. So sorry, I'm going too fast, but finally these are some of my conclusions, and the data from 2017 were not so complete, So the sample for the year is not so representative. The increase in the users over the years is consistent with the increase of the asylum applicants, and analyzing the data from the health would give us a more complete vision of LGBTQ migration. And another fact is that I think that the president was 5 minutes, so I would try in that. And I also give you some actual facts from 2019. In 16 countries, penalize LGBTQ people by law, and 11 of them with the death penalty. 173 countries that do not allow the same-sex marriage, and 3,340 murders of transgender people in the world. So that's all. Thank you.
Great, Lali.
Really nice.
It was very cool.
Well, I think the presentation was just 5 minutes. I was really scared because I was 6 minutes, and then I heard that 8 minutes. I was like, oh my god. Sorry.
It was well explained. Okay. Time for question.
I have a question. Yes.
Yeah.
So this organization, it's because you work with them?
Yes, yes and no. I it's more because I'm part of them, so I feel really good. No, I feel no, I'm related. So.
I have one question. You told us on the last slide that you had some issues with the data of 2017.
Oh my god.
What do you mean by with this sentence?
Yeah, it's because in this year it was like the year when they start to keep data. I don't know how. To say. So that was the worst nightmare of my life because I had to map in all the columns literally, and to the age range. I have to do a lot of things to keep that data. So it's because they at the beginning they don't know it, or they don't have clear how to keep information. So and actually I think they can improve their database in another categories, so where we can see more information about LGBTQ migrants.
And have you considered to sharing those results and that presentation to the association? Let's say, because they are I think that they will love it as well.
Yeah, well, I would like to show them, but more in an approach of like of the work. I don't know, the things that they can look better, or get a better approach, because here I do like more an approach more as to how do you say that, sensibilizar, awareness
Awareness.
to LGBTQ as migrants, but to keep it, I think I do it in another way. So I also analyze the information about HIV quick test, but there is a lot of information, so there is not time enough. So I put it on the presentation.
Super nice. Congrats.
Yes, congrats, Lali.
Thank you. I was really scared.
No, I think it's super clear, no?
Okay, so you can stop sharing your screen.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna be time for Anna. We can hear you, Anna. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Is it okay now?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, I was saying that after Lali's presentation, I don't know if my topic is such an interesting topic, but well, I'll try to do it the best. So my name is Ana Carretero. I'm an all-women student and in this data analytics course. And today I'm going to talk to you about what makes people happy. The data I was working with was extracted from the World Happiness Report. We will be focusing mainly on the 2020 data, but also using the rest of the year's data to compare. Okay. Our main variable would be happiness score, okay? This comes from a global survey of this organization that is asking every country to average how happy are they from 1 to 10. So what we are getting here with happiness score is the average happiness for every country. We will be also using some social data variables as country GDP, healthy life expectancy, social support, freedom to make choices, generosity, and lack of corruption. Okay. The methodology I followed was, first of all, finding out the world's happiness distribution, and then exploring the correlation between happiness and the rest of variables. And to end with, I tried to analyze the most happy country in the world, which I'm not telling which one it is yet. Okay, so let's start with the average happiness in the world to have like the whole picture. We can see that the average is not very high. It's around 5, sadly. At least we can see that it looks like it's increasing with the exception of 2017. But by now we are focusing on 2020 data to see how happiness is spread around the world. So I call this plot the yellower, the happier. And in this, oh, sorry, the neighbor's dog. In this plot, we can see the happiest countries. Yeah, sorry, give me a minute. Yeah, I don't know if you could hear that, but the neighbor's dog was barking so loudly. Okay, so yeah, in this map, we can see the happier countries and the least happy countries. Okay, now let's focus in the happiness distribution by region in year 2020. This plot shows the distribution. Each dot represents a country. And for example, we can see that Western Europe here, all the scores are around 7 and 8, while in Middle East, for example, the scores are widely distributed. Okay, so which are the 10 most happy countries to live and the least happy countries to live? We can see it here in the map, but maybe we can understand it better in this plot, where we can see the scores and the rank. The rank is led by Finland, Denmark, and Switzerland. And on the lowest part, Afghanistan, South Sudan, and Zimbabwe. So in 2020, Finland is the most happy country in the world. Okay, I was asking myself, okay, but is this changing from one year to another? Are these results stable, or is it changing a lot throughout the years? So I plot the most happy countries in this period, in these years. So I could see that the 10 most happy countries look to be pretty constant, right? But what happens when we move to the least happy countries? It's changing a lot. We can see countries that entering, that going out. It's really different. So we could say that top 10 is stable and least 10 are really unstable. Okay, now let's move to explore the correlation between happiness and the rest of variables. Okay, here we have some countries ranked by their score. Okay, but from the results we have by now, it looks like the richer, the happier. So let's try to find out if this is true, dropping some color representing GDP. And yeah, it looks like money and happiness are very correlated. Here we have GDP, the darkest green, the higher GDP, the richer the country is. So let's go back for a second and see what happened to GDP on 2017. Do you remember that 17? Do you remember that we have the lowest score here? So if GDP is the only variable that is influencing happiness, the GDP should go down, right? But surprisingly, the world's average GDP increased in 2017. So that means that other factors are influencing on this happiness score. So let's look for other correlations in the variables, like healthy life expectancy, that's clearly correlated with happiness. Social support, it's also clearly correlated with happiness. And freedom, that's not that clearly correlated, but also pretty correlated, sorry. So the variables less correlated from our data are lack of corruption, sadly, and generosity, that is not correlated at all. Okay, so now we know what variables are influencing on happiness, and let's focus on Finland, which is the most happy country in 2020. And from this plot, we can see that Finland used to be pretty clustered with the top 10 countries in 2015, but in 2020, it ended leading the classification and being the most super happy country in the world. So I thought it would be interesting to analyze a little bit the variables from Finland, just from Finland, to see what happens in this period. So I plot everything, and I found out that, surprisingly, the absence of corruption was the variable that was increasing the most in 2020. So it was surprising because GDP, for example, keeps pretty stable. So what I understand from this plot, it could be that maybe absence of corruption is a very important aspect when all the other like economical and health aspects are in a country are satisfied. So that could be the key aspect for Finland to going lead the classification. And yeah, let's jump to the conclusions. First of all, we saw that the happiest countries tend to remain happy, that the variables that are important for happiness, for people's happiness, are social support, country GDP, healthy life expectancy, and freedom to make choices. And that trust in government institutions could be a key factor for Finland's happiness. And yeah, to end with, I would like to say that 2020's report was released in March. So I was expecting I could find some data related to COVID, but as it was released in March, it's not, we can see a significant impact from the disease in the results. So I think 2021 report would be really interesting to analyze and yeah, and see what happens in terms of happiness in the world. So that's all. Thanks a lot for listening to me. Hola.
Great. Super. I was wondering, Anna, sorry that I have a question. I was wondering if you use, for example, Finland, the most happiest country, but did you compare that with the rate of suicides?
Sorry. Oh no, I wanted to go into that, and I thought it would be interesting, but I couldn't do it because it was too long. But I was reading in the actual report that suicide is. I mean, it's the highest rate of suicides in the northern countries, but it's more me than the real impact. But I don't know. I didn't check the data, so I can't tell. But it would be an interesting approach to check out. Yes.
Nice. Well done. I really like it. More questions?
Have you seen, well, just for curiosity, in which happiness score has Spain? Just for curiosity.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
6 something.
Yeah, I think we are in 2020. I think we are in the 26th place. Yeah, not that bad. Yeah. Finland with Spain, but in the end I didn't do it because I thought it would be really depressing.
But it's out from 10. So when you say the average is 5.3 and then Finland that is a winner, let's say has a 7, it's out of 10, no?
Yes, it's out of 10. Actually, they asked people if happiness was a ladder with 10 steps, where would you place yourself? In which step? So that's the question people has to answer. And yeah, I mean, the highest ranked country, that's Finland, it's not that high. It's 7.8. I mean, it's okay, but it's not 10.
Surprising. Well, I mean, economically or politically speaking, okay, no, but in terms of weather and so on, half of the year is dark in Finland, you say. I don't understand.
A Spanish person speaking. I mean, but I think they don't know. They just work with border and that's it, you know.
Yeah, because there's this myth like hotter countries are more happy or Mediterranean countries are more happy, but
yeah, but then you don't have money to eat, so
richer.
But I think that also this happiness score is calculated without taking into account these things.
Yeah.
Such as the true night, as Daniela was telling.
But I have to say that if you check, because I read it like years ago, you see that countries like Colombia are very high up in the ranking. They are very happy countries with a low GDP, let's say. So
I read an article, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the only
happiness. Not only Colombian people are really happy, but if you don't talk about the topics that really affect them. So I didn't know the happier countries, no, the resilient people. I don't know.
I could check it.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye. Now it's time for Nadia.
Yes, I'm here. Okay, I'm going to start.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, are you saying my screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Nadia Semes. I am a student for data analyst course, and I also work as a credit controller in a medical company. Okay, I'm going to show my project today. Let's go to do an introduction. The topic, as I said before, is the municipal debt risk. And I don't know if you have ever heard about bad debt. Do you know what is bad debt?
No.
No. Yes, I know. Probably if you don't have a background or if you not come from a background from finance, you don't know what is bad debt. The point is bad debt is an expense that a company or a business incurs once the debt is become uncollectible. What is the means? For instance, if you have a business and you have a customer that didn't pay an invoice, after you have to do an accrual in your balance in order to show the negative impact that the invoice not paying have in your account. For that is in terms of accountancy. Okay, and what we are going to analyze here, okay, we are going to analyze the influence of some variables of debt from 8 unknown municipalities in South Africa. We don't know the name of the municipalities, so we only know that it's from South Africa, but as we will see in the next steps, we are analyze only numerical variables. Okay, let's go to move on. Our data. The data used is from Kaggle. You can see the link that I obtained the data. I work mainly created using plotly libraries for visualization and doing an exploratory data analysis. What are the expectations? Okay, understand in a easy and a simple way a topic that could be boring or not very common because part of or you don't know anything about bad dev. Okay, let's go to move on. We have some problems in our data. I decide to plot the problem in 3 points for organize, okay? The problem one is we have a lot of variables, more than 10, which is a high number of variables that influence in a dev or we become in a bad dev. The second problem was decide which one of these variables choose. And the third problem is the imbalanced data. A few data anomalies, as for example, negative numbers. Having in mind that we are going to analyze numerical variables, if you have negative numbers, that makes you need investigate about why is the reason, because we have numerical negative numbers. Okay, how to solve it? Let's go to move on. Okay, have a look in our data. We have 16 variables, more than 10. The conclusion is we are all related to each other. I'm going to give you an example. For instance, collection ratio. Collection ratio is result from divide total billing into between total receipting. So we have 3 variables related on it: total billing, total receipting, and the result from its collection ratio. So when I did the analyze, I tried these conclusions for a first analyze, a quickly analyze. So I decided to focus in 3 that are the most important: the collection ratio, property size, and bad debt indicator. Property size or property value, and bad debt indicator. The third thing that I did, remove negative values. Why I decided remove negative values? Well, as I said before, we are going to analyze numerical variables or features that, like for total billing, total receipting. So if you have a total billing negative, that means that we have credit note in our account. So we don't need to analyze credit note or total billing negative, because the focus on this topic is the bad debt and the risk of some billing becoming a bad debt. Okay. If you have any question, let me know, please. Okay. Let's go to move to the next step, and let's go to analyze. Okay. We are the first analyze that I did the relation between bad debt indicator and collection ratio. So I did a plot, and in this plot, I have to clarify that bad debt indicator has 0 and 1, only 2 numbers. For the bad debt indicator 0, that means that is not a bad debt, and bad debt indicator 1 means that have a bad debt. Okay, and it's important to see the relation with the collection ratio, because for those accounts that have a collection ratio less than 0.45 means that it's a bad debt, because it's less than 0.45. I don't know if you see the number here. It's very small, but that is the correlation. So for those accounts that don't have a collection ratio more than 0.45, is not a bad debt. So makes sense, because if you have a high collection ratio, that means that you have collected more, you have collected the customer pay, and it's not becoming a bad debt if the customer paying the invoice, okay? So second, analyze the property values and the size and the bad debt indicator. And I did this plot. I have to convert some values from the property because there are a lot of values. And as I say before, we have a bad debt indicator 1 and 0. So sometimes it's not easy to analyze two numerical variables very different from each other. So I convert some numbers, and in this plot you can see that the small value has a property less bad debt indicate. Okay. The third analyze, I did the ranking of the key variables. So I decided to focus only in 3 variables, but I analyzed the other variables in order to determine which is the impact relation in bad debt indicator. And we, in our plot, show that the most influenced variables in the bad debt indicator is collection ratio, as I said before. And the second is the property value, as you can see in the bar. Okay. Well, we are going to summarize some important facts here. Only 3 variables have a strong impact in bad debt. Having in mind we are talking about in this case that municipal debt. In others case, you will find a lot of different variables with. Okay, collection ratio is the most important, and negative values doesn't make sense. As an example that I say before, in the negative values, sometimes we have to decide if these negative values make sense or not in your analysis. In that case, in this case, it is not necessary to include the negative values. So we decide to remove because it doesn't make sense. So as a conclusion, I would like to share with you this phrase, because in this presentation I try to make simple analysis, and the phrase is make it simple but significant. That is, I was trying with my project to share with you some concepts or some topics that is not very common, but is from my background. So finally, to be honest with you, that was a challenge for me, because I have never worked with data that I not collected. Usually I work as a credit controller, but the data from the customers, from the total billing, I collected this data, or I know perfectly where the data come from. In that case, I don't know the data. Okay, so that was a challenge for me, and I enjoy trying to make simple but significant my analysis. Thanks for your attention. And if you have some question or doubts, please let me know. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, has a question.
Yes.
Which was the most difficult part? Because you told us that this was a challenge and so on. So, which was the more difficult part of this project, let's say, no? So, I don't know, get the data or whatever.
Okay, the most difficult part was decide between one variable or the other one, because previous to decide, you have to understand and what is the impact, and you have to try conclusions, and understand why you have negative values. So the most difficult part was decide from these variables.
Yeah,
In that particular case, because we are analyze municipal debt, but in other case, if you are analyze debt from customer from, I don't know, hospitals or education, it's completely different. So in that case, was a challenge because I don't used to analyze this kind of variables in
and
my
also that data that comes from South Africa, no? That
exactly. And we don't know the names of the municipality, the categorical variable we don't have. So we have to analyze numerical variables in that case.
okay, great. Congrats.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Imagine that you can start again your project from scratch. What would you change now that you know all the process?
Sorry, could you repeat? I don't hear very well.
I'm sorry. Imagine that you are gonna start your project again from scratch. What
Yes.
would you change now that you know all the process, all the methodologies, all the theoretical part?
If I have to start a project in
No, the same project again.
the same project again, okay. For instance, I have to start the same project again, I try to show with another kind of plots, because I think more when you are comparing numerical variables, some plots are not easy to understand for people that know. But if I have to change something, I will change this part.
Nice, nice.
Or try to find something like much easy to understand.
I was curious, and now that we have new students here, so maybe that can give them an advice. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
So next one is gonna be Olga.
Yes. Hi. I'm gonna share. Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Olga, and I'm a student from this course, from the intensive course, as Laura said. My background is environmental science, but I decided to choose a topic that it was a little bit more amusing, since we have to be a lot of hours in front of a computer after hours. So something that may be peculiar and interesting. So finally, I chose the topic of UFOs. So what can you expect from today's presentation is, first of all, gain knowledge about the current data regarding UFO sighting. UFOs is unidentified flying objects. Observe the data available, different interpretations of the same information to gather different perspectives from depending on which you're looking your data from. Then take into account the geographical status of every data. And then finally, to consider some future steps in order to continue investigating in this field. So, first of all, data is alive, and today's information is tomorrow's misinformation. Specifically in this case, which the more data you have, and more current you can really analyze further. So let's see, what are we talking about data? I work with a data set of more than 80,000 entrances, that it was a list of worldwide, of all countries in the world. This data was clean, not so much missing values, but in this case, the information of the missing values was also good information that you will see later. We had different fields. It was the date when the UFO was seen, time, city, state, country, the shape of the UFO, that is a peculiar information too, the length and duration of the contact, the description of the encounter, and the latitude and longitude to have a specific space where you can go and try to maybe replicate the sighting. This data is not so current, so it's from January 10th, 2003 to September 9th, 2013. We don't have the current data set. And then finally, as we were saying, the quality of the data was good enough to be able to work with the whole amount of data. So the first thing that we see is that when looking at all the data by countries, most of it is from the United States, meaning that from out of these 80,000 entries, 9,670 entries didn't have a specific country from where the information was coming from. But when looking closer at the CSV file, those entries were the ones that were from a country other than United States and Canada. Okay, so that's why the no information was also information. So taking that into account and looking at the amount of data coming from the United States, so let's focus on the USA, right? That's where we can centralize our study. If we go to the United States, we can work by state, since in the data we had this information. And looking at the number of sightings of UFOs per state, that's the count, we can see that the yellow, that is the higher number of sightings declared, are located in California. And the rest, the clearer, are the second ones, where you can also see some UFOs. But we have to take into account also that California is one of the most populated states. Okay, but well, we can see here, we can declare that in the West Coast, there are more sightings of UFOs, and that's where you should go if you are chasing them. But if we look the data from another angle, we see that if we make a different graphic, the number of UFOs reported per state that are reflected in the size of the green bubbles. So although the biggest bubble is in California, in the West Coast, we can see that the higher concentration of other bubbles, let's say, is located on the East Coast. So that means that the center of the country is not so popular, let's say, when reporting sightings. That doesn't mean that they don't see it, but we said there is a lower population there. So that could be one of the reasons. Then, as we mentioned, there are many different shapes of UFOs, which is peculiar. Some of them, the more famous one or common one is a light, which can be confusing if we see it from land, let's say, because everything can be a light in the sky if you think about it. And then there are triangles, circles. There are some peculiar cigars or diamonds, which is also quite common. There is also a common one that is a fireball, which is a little bit worrying because it's not so common, but it can have a more scientific explanation. But then we keep going further into specific details from the reports. And that can be, when did this happen and for how long? And here we can see a very clear pattern. Let's say that normally there is an average report on sightings, but if we go to December 12, 2009, there is a peak, over 1,200 reports in the United States of something in the sky happening, okay? Which is something that it has to be taken into consideration and see what happened on that date. But also it's important to consider that the length of this contact is not something that is very fast, but there are many reports over 300 seconds, that it's 5 minutes. So it's 5 minutes looking at the sky and seeing a light or a cigar or a diamond or a fireball. So it's quite long for an encounter. So as we were saying, what happened on December 12th, 2009? this is something that I need to look further because there is nothing very specific regarding on what happened on that day. There are different natural events that may have been a cause of that peak. For example, there was the explosion of 2 different volcanoes, one in Mexico and one in Nicaragua, which can affect to the United States. There was a Russian failed missile above Norway that reported some UFOs over Norway, but I don't know if that pollution could have affected the skies in the United States. Also, from the NASA, they launched a spacecraft, which can also be as an excuse of something seen in the outer space. And then there is always the explanation of no explanation, which it can also be possible, and it can be an UFO actually. So if we take this no explanation into account, we have to see that during this COVID situation, there was an increase in the report of cases of sightings. So maybe there is no such a scientific reason behind these explanations other than social factors or predisposition, or maybe just time to look at the sky, maybe. So it's also a curious effect that happened during this confinement. So that would be the first, we're done now. So what I would like to also set for the future, let's say, it's what can we do with this part of the project. The idea would be to see further on what happened on December 12, 2009, and where specifically. Then also gather data from Europe, because we do not report it or we do not see them here. So that would be also interesting to do. Update the information to 2020 to see the evolution of by year, and see if there are more reports up to date. And then try to see scientific events happening in the atmosphere. And finally, social factors that I think can be very interesting, but a wider report on rocket use, religion, cults, etc., on the regions with a higher tax of reports. And thank you. So any question will be welcome, although I may have not the answer about the UFOs.
Olga, have you seen one?
Sorry, what?
Have you ever seen one UFO?
I don't know. If it's a light in the sky, maybe. I don't know. It's very tricky.
But for sure that there's no, the fireball wall, no.
No. I mean, I would be under a table. I don't know. I think it's boring, and I think that it's a fireball over 5 minutes on the sky, which, if that it was an UFO, I think it would be like I don't know, in the front page of a newspaper. I don't know. I think it's very curious, and that's why I think that the huge part would be to analyze this with social factors, that maybe we come up with interesting things, or maybe there is no pattern at all, and we will never know what happens in the sky.
Yeah. So, I remember there is a place in Venezuela called the Amazonas, and there is no people, no population. And when I was there, the guys from the aldea said that there is a lot of UFOs there. I never see them, but
well, if anyone is interested in Montserrat, they say that if you go there, it's like a main spot to see some UFOs around Catalonia. So
I saw that in a documentary.
Yeah. So the next meeting can be in Montserrat, while looking at the sky.
A lot of people goes there.
Yes.
You can cross the information from the earthquakes from Alba with your information. I don't know, maybe you can get something.
I have to cross a lot of things because I was mainly looking at the sky, let's say, but for sure there are things affecting the rotation maybe of the Earth, or that can also influence on how we see light reflected and
so on.
nice. There is more questions. I don't know if somebody has one.
Have you seen an UFO? Any of you?
No.
No, that I know.
If I'm one. If I sing one, I don't know.
I think I have not, but in your conclusions, there was a news from my...
Yes, from your village.
about the reporting, so...
I remember when I was living in Los Angeles, that when you look at the sky, there was a lot of things, but you never know if there is a new forecast.
Yeah. Well, pues thank you.
Thanks, Olga. You're welcome.
So next one is gonna be Laura.
A ver. You seeing well my screen?
Yes.
Cool. So I'm Laura Fernandez. I'm the CEO and co-founder of allWomen and very amateur DJ for fun at DJ Mingui. You can look for me. So that's why I decided to do this project, and also because it was summer and I wanted to have something fun and light, as Olga mentioned. But in the end, because it was a data analytics project, it wasn't that light. But I enjoy so much learning more about how music and songs are made. So first of all, my business case and a bit of context for you. So what I wanted to understand and analyze is how EDM hits are made and have those ingredients change over time. So what we understand for electronic music is that they're for music created using electronic devices, so pretty straightforward. And then this genre of music is loosely referred to as techno. While this is incorrect, techno is one of the many genres of electronic music that we also know as EDM. That's why I preferred it previously like that, which is electronic dance music. So I focus on 4 decades. So we have the 80s coming from, pop and disco, and then the synthesizers arrived to the music artists. And then we have hits that, I Feel Love of Donna Summer, and then New Order and Kraftwerk and Duran Duran. So that was kind of like the beginning of electronic music because of the popularity of synthesizers. And then the 90s, we have hits as Technotronic, that, Mono Pam Pam Jam, that everyone knows, Ace of Base, Chemical Brothers, and then we come to the 2000s when, kind of like mix start there with, Daft Punk and Fisher Spooner, and then our decade, so let's say from 2010 and 20, where there is a mix of all genres at once, which I really like it. So what about my data and how I did extract my data? So I decided to focus on EDM hits from the 80s and the 20s and 2020. And then, so 4 decades. I chose 20 hits per decade, so 80 hits in total. And then that I selected through several music reference media. For this analysis, no socioeconomical contexts have been taken in consideration, only like variables that have to do with the creation of songs. And from where I have collected my data, so I've used Spotify, so they are very, let's say, open into that. So you have to connect your, Spotify account to their Spotify API, and everything is open to you. They want you to connect to it so they can control what you are doing it. But other than that, everything is open and accessible, and it was like super comfortable in order to do this analyze. So I could, scrap each of the songs that I put on my playlist, and I use a library called Spotify, which I think is that Idoia showed me. So let's see my data exploration and the features that I analyzed for each songs. So I chose 14 variables that then now I will present, but that I put together in different packages, let's say, according to the nature of this feature of this variable, what that variable means. So there are different like boxes, let's say. So first of all, we have conventional music notation, which is like international agreement on how we measure music, right? So we have the key, which is the harmony, and this key notation goes from 0 to 11 in any song ever in the world, right? So looking at electronic music, and over all those decades, you don't see exactly a pattern. There is a variety of all of them, even though the most used keys were 0, 11, and 9. And if you look to music theory and all of what keys are constructed, you can see that normally these keys are associated to songs that are more like vivid or happy or energetic, let's say. But still, there is a higher variation of keys they were using over decades. And so here you can see the key tendency, because I'm always comparing like how an electronic music hit is done or electronic song is done, but also I'm trying to compare like decade by decade to see if there are changes or not, or there are no changes. So you can see blue is for the 80s, orange is for the 90s, and green is for the 2000, and then the pink is for 2010 to 2020. So I'll be using those colors to identify decades in the next graphs. So here you can see, as there is no any pattern that is related to the 80s or the 90s or 2000, it's like all spread equally. This is also related to time signature, and mode is also related to music convention, let's say, musical convention. So the time signature, it is like, in electronic music, that all songs are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is time signature, and all the songs have their structure as electronic music that they are. And then the mode means that it's like a major is 1, or minor scale in 0. So here we have like half. This is for all decades altogether. And here again, I'm always interested in to see if there is an evolution over the decades, and you can see that no, we had like songs that were in major and songs that were in minor, and equally distributed over the decades. So from a mood perspective, right, like how this song made us feel when we listened to it. So danceability is one of the features that Spotify was offering. So now these features that I'm going to explain are created by Spotify. So the previous one were like music conventions. So they are like, agreed on by everyone in the music sector, let's say. And those are like some features that are defined by Spotify. That they were useful, but well, just so you know. Danceability is in a range from 1 to 0, mean 1 is a more danceable song, and 0 is like less danceable song. So again, like you can see over the decades, so 80s, 90s, 20s, and 2010, that more or less like all the songs are always like 0.5 and above. But you see that it's like very similar. Of course, you have like, different levels because there are different songs, but you don't see like a trend or an extreme change over one decade to another. The same is happening for energy. Again, is 1 the most energetic, 0 the less energetic. All songs as are electronic music are over, 0.6. Of course, again, you have like different songs, but you see that like over the decades, we have more or less, similar pattern. And the balance here changes more inside the decades, but still you can see that if you compare one decade to another, you don't see like a big difference. Balance means 1 is when we perceive that song as a happy song, or 0 when we perceive that song as a sad song. It's like only a perception. And here is the tempo. So the tempo is like the BPMs, no, the beats per minute that each song has. In electronic music, normally these BPMs go from 120 and 130, and you can see that this is like that again over decades, even though you have some songs that are like under that point, but that's the tendency. I must say that I was surprised that like over the decades, like the structure is always the same. yeah, let's look at from properties perspective of that song. So loudness is the perception that we also have about noise in the song. So here, the way we count that, it goes from 0 to -60. So -60 would be super loud song. That would be for us like death metal song, right? That's how we perceive, or the way they have range this variable in question, right? So, so yeah. So in our songs that we were analyzing, like we are always like -5, -10, and even though here you can see in the last decade that I analyzed that this tends to go higher, so we perceive less noise. And an assumption that I've done, like here is more, it's the beginning of like synthesizer, so it's more raw, let's say, or more rough. And here is like all like super well done studio music, so you don't have this perception of noise. Speechness has to do with, with having, so 0 is like there is no vocals, no lyrics, or 1 that it don't even appear. It would be like you have many vocals and lyrics. So again, as electronic music over the decades, like our data is all focused here, like no vocals. And here, like in the last decade, when you can see that now genres are all mixing, and maybe a rap song would be one because they are like speaking like all the time, and now there is all this mix of genres, like where you have like rap with electronic, with reggaeton, with pop, like you start seeing a bit of like vocals added to the songs. And from a context perspective, that means from where the song was recorded. So acousticness means having like the presence of like real instruments in the songs. So here also I was doing assumptions, right? So in the 80s, like with the starting of like synth pop, actually they come from from pop and rock and disco, where they were using like actual instruments, and then they introduced these synthesizers. But the kind of music is kind of the same. So I mean, they are still using these like instruments. Then the 90s is not at all like instrument, or the 20s. And then here again in our last decade, where I see there is a mix of like all genres and things, like you start to see how this like changes and increases. And liveness is the perception that this song was recorded with an audience. So normally, like electronic music would be recorded on a studio, and you don't want to create this feeling of having an audience there, because it's strange. It's not associated to the genre, even though you have some exceptions here that again, like very similar and close to 0, which means no presence, let's say, of an audience. Another feature is the duration. Again, like also I was thinking like maybe because in these modern times, like we need like things that are faster and stuff like that, so maybe songs are like shorter than before, but actually no, like 1 or 200 milliseconds is around 4 minutes. And you can see it's very stable, very similar from one decade to another. Well, you have exceptions again, but very similar. And popularity, I put it here, this is a tricky feature, because popularity is a feature created by Spotify, and what they understand, that goes from 0 to 100, and 100 would be the most popular, 0 the less popular. And what they understand for popularity is the song that has like a lot of plays in a recent period. So for example, when I was looking at my hits that I selected from the 80s, I had some songs that were, under 40, and I was like, but those are like, like hits for sure. But yeah, they are like all songs, and maybe they are not being, listened like in the present, so their popularity goes down. But I made the decision to leave some of those songs because I really believe that they were hits at that time, and so I decided to leave them there. And as a bonus track, because this is a music project, I created some word clouds for each of the decades. So you can see in the 80s, the most used word was love and feel, which, what it makes total sense coming from, a dark period of history and then trying to, I don't know, to build again and humanity and society. For the 90s was like better and everybody. Here I also make assumptions like in the 90s with, all the beginning or, with all this like club culture and, everyone going to, big clubs and big sessions like all together. So that's something that I think would be a reason. For the 2000, the word mix, which it also makes sense because of the moment of the music, where we start to, connect all these genres and mix everything. And feed, I also thought that it was that it makes so much sense for that period, for 2010 and 2020, where like so many collaborations that we see today between artists that are very like apart from each other, but that are making music together. And I think this is very trend right now, right? Like future. So my conclusions, so that was one of the first questions that I had. So how EDM hits are made. So of course, like what you want to have like high danceability and energy and balance over 0.5 on according to Spotify. Tempo, you want to have between 120 and 130 BPMs. The mean in that case was 124 BPMs. You can play with both major or minor scales. You don't want to go lower than a minus 7.39 decibels, because you want to sound clean. Better if you don't use vocals, since we're talking about like electronic music, but still like today everything is changing, so you can allow yourself. Acousticness is a decision for you to make, as we saw like recently everything is kind of changing in music. Don't play with this live concept in your songs. The duration is 4 minutes. Keys, again, you can use any key you would like to, but those were like the most used. And always build your songs on a 4 time signature on 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And in case you are interested in to create an EDM hit. And another question that I had is, have those ingredients changed over time? So the answer is no. And I said, in the middle of the presentation that I was surprised. You can see like all the time, like all the decades. So the colors are the decades are all together, and you cannot see a pattern or a trend. That is always all mixed. And of course, like in the values that make an EDM song and the range that makes an EDM song, but there is no trend, and electronic music has been done since the very beginning until today in the same form. As future steps, I would like to analyze and compare the tracks from an audio perspective. So that was more like a future perspective, and half of them were given by Spotify, so it's not conventional music notation. But I would like to see from this more like super like musical construction perspective that includes segments and the tones and bars and beats and pitches, and to understand more the composition of these songs. I would love to compare hits or songs that we consider hits between music genres to see if there is a formula of the hit, or each genre has its own rules. And of course, I would love to use like larger data sets for both approaches. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. I'm going to close myself.
Nice. Very interesting.
I have a question. What kind of graphic is this one that takes the amount of words and put the size depending on the dimension? Because it's really cool.
Word cloud.
Word cloud.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I can share with you the codes.
No, you have to explain them. Explain them.
Trick question.
It's very interesting, the topic, the music.
It was fun for me to do it, I must say, and I learned also about music.
Yes.
And Laura, do you feel prepared now to create your own EDA song?
No, not yet. So I have the ingredients, but I don't have the knowledge to produce music today. Ask me maybe in 2 months. I don't know. There's a lot of problems that I'm but I haven't tested. But I mean, with that, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like straightforward.
Nice.
And what's Taki? Taki was the word cloud of the 2010.
Yeah, I ignore that, no lo sé.
Taki es hortera.
No, because there's a song that's Taki 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 or something like this.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe, bueno, I want to stop.
Which is your favorite hit?
Taki Taki.
No, I love all of them. So I created the playlist to do the project, but now I listen to those playlists. So I look for hits, like looking in different like media and stuff like that, but also I selected songs that I liked. So I hope I wasn't like super biased. But I want to create playlists that, I also enjoy or I use like what I consider that is a good song, whatever that means. Pero I can share those playlists with you. They are fun. Like 80s and 90s, they are super fun. Like 2000, well, we already know, but 80s and 90s were super fun. And actually, I had like more songs, but at some point I had to stop. So I have like one playlist for the project, one playlist for me to listen to.
You have to create a playlist with DJ McQueen. Yes.
Exactly. And yeah, and for the work cloud thing, I have a notebook that I can share with you, and that was interesting also because so there are all those words like there is like all these articles and stuff that are not actually actual names or adjectives that could bring value. So those you create a list of one is created already that list that is called stop words. So you put the function and then you say like, okay, let's use this like looking inside this column, this variable, and create I was like separating my data set in decades, let's say, and then I was telling like, okay, look only to the variable name, and then within the variable name, like ignore all the words that are like there is apostrophe s, like all these like no meaning words. And after those removing those words, you still can get things like remaster it or edit, and you're not interested in those words either. So you can also code to remove those words, and then it gives you the final result, and then it gives you the thing like that, and you just print it.
But Laura, where did you get the lyrics from? Like
the lyrics.
Yeah, like these words, or do they come from?
So those are the name of the titles of the songs.
Oh, okay, the titles. Okay. I thought it was in the lyrics. Okay.
No, well, that could be interesting also too, but then you want to analyze the lyrics of each of the songs, and that was not possible for me.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was over the title. Yeah, sorry, maybe I didn't specify.
Nice. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Nice.
So I think Romina is here. Yeah, she just connected.
Yes, I'm here. I'm finally here.
Hello, Romina.
How are you? I'm sorry I'm late, super late, but I just arrived now home. It's a crazy my life. Last 2 months I started a new work and I'm crazy. I don't have time ni para peinarme, as you can see. Okay. So I will share my presentation. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, my final work, my analysis is about absenteeism, laboral absenteeism. Yeah, what is a I like a lot all matters about laboral questions like absenteeism and teleworking and things like that. So, as you know, I suppose there are 3 types of absenteeism at work. One is face-to-face, the other is justified, and the other is unjustified. So maybe you are at work, but you are not working. So you are absent, okay? Its consequences are, for example, reduced income or dismissal for the worker, lower productivity, bad work environment, and increased cost for the worker, company, and social security, and oversaturation. Okay. To do this analysis, I choose a database from Kaggle, from a Canadian food company, which is located in Canada. Is a very big company, and some of the data is real, but another part of the data is fictitious. The variables are gender, city, job title, department, job title, department, store location, business unit, division, age, seniority, and number of hours of absenteeism. The purpose of this analysis is to identify sources of absence in the organization and predict or minimize it. Okay. In a very first analysis, in a very simple first analysis, univariate analysis, I could see that in this company, there are more male than female employees, and most of them are in their 40s or 50s. The majority are from Vancouver, Victoria, New Westminster, etc. And the jobs mostly are located in Vancouver, Victoria, that is the same as the location, Nanaimo, etc. The categories are distributed in descending order in number between cashier, millman, meat cutter, baker, product employee. Most of categories are physical categories and not office positions, okay? So this will be a variable that we will have to tener en cuenta. No me sale ahora tener en cuenta. Okay. Employees are distributed by departments between customer service. But this is there are the names of the departments. It's not relevant. Okay, you are still here because I'm reading a lot, but the best of this analysis begins now. Okay, applying the simple bivariate analysis, we can see that by gender, as we can see, it is women who accumulate more hours of absenteeism. And one of these causes is, without doubt, motherhood. So I put 2 graphics to see. This is the same explanation with a different graphic that we can see the absentees in women are more than in men. About age, we can see an histogram of the age, and as we can see in this figure, the peak is at 45 years more or less, and the curve flattens at the extremes, okay? As you can see, we have some outliers, more than 60 and less than 20, which is not very normal. So I eliminate these outliers because to do the analysis, it made no sense. In the bivariate visualization, with this scatter plot, we can see a very clear linear correlation between age and absenteeism. From the age from 30 years, we can see the trend is accentuated both in women and men. More women because the maternity, the motherhood. City of residence and city of work. Doing this analysis, I could see that there is a relation between city of residence and city of work. At first, I thought this plot was not clear, but I analyzed the points with more absenteeism hours, the yellow points, and I could see the cities of residence and the cities of work were the very farthest in these points and the nearest in the points with this color, so it made sense. For job title, department, and business unit, if we look at the combinatorial analysis between absenteeism and these three variables, we see that there is a greater absenteeism in position departments where there is more work that involves repetitive physical tasks, such cutting meat, replenishing milk, and also in positions facing the public, as you can see here, or for example, here in stores that are facing the public. Okay, stores and head office, more absenteeism here. Very good. I see that. I don't see you, but I suppose you follow me, so we can go finishing this analysis. This part is not very important because I add seniority in a cross matrix, and we see that in this company it's not a determining factor in absenteeism. O sea que it's not important. Okay, so I made proposals for this company. Considering that the age and characteristics of job are determining factors in the absenteeism of this company, the hours of work could be reduced from a certain age group. For example, with a part-time working day. With this, more employment would also be generated, and with good cost control in favor of productivity, the company could increase profits. In another of the Another of the factors that can promote absenteeism is the distance between the place of residence and the place of work. This company could hire for each store, headquarters, employees who live near and did not have to travel so many kilometers each day. Regarding that physical positions, less qualified and with repetitive tasks are the ones that generate most absenteeism, it could be offered a gym, for example, or a physiotherapist service, or discounts in a nearest gym, so a physiotherapist, and perhaps promote sports and a healthy lifestyle with an adequate catering service. I know an example of a company that is Spanish Laboratorios Quinton that promotes sport and teleworking, and this company is one of the best rated companies to work for. And to finish, as explained, in this company, there are hardly any office positions. If there were perhaps absenteeism, if there were more office positions, maybe absenteeism would also be present in these places. For this reason, it would be advisable to promote teleworking whenever the position allows it, or to look for mixed formulas between this and the face-to-face, always with the word that usually hides the key to success of a company, that is flexibility. Thank you, gracias, thanks. Ahora no sé cómo salir de aquí, pero ya saldré algún día. Okay. Wait a minute. Ya está. Okay.
So,
any questions? If you have any questions about
It's interesting also to expand this analysis to a company that will have more office positions.
I would like to. I need the database to do it, but I'm waiting for this moment. When I find it, I will let you know.
Yes, because I'm interested in know how a company that has like 80% of the employees in offices, let's say, like deals with that absenteeism and so on.
I searched a lot of databases this August. I spent all August searching databases to do a very strong analysis and change I could find, I don't know, is me? Is it me? No.
No sé. Bueno, no sé. So,
I found this database, and I am very glad and happy and motivated to go on analyzing database, and I want to focus my professional career to do it.
then cheers to that, no?
Yes.
Well done, girls. I have to congratulate all of you for this intensive course that I imagine. I remember that I saw Laura and Olga always working on that and asking Doya, talking with their classmate, and I know I have been doing a camp with them, and I know how intense it is. The more that have another work, like a full-time work. It's exactly.
I mean, I'm pretty satisfied that was 100 hours course, and we didn't have any Python knowledge nothing. We started from scratch, and in 1 month, let's be honest, 100 hours, we did something. I mean,
Something nice.
something
I think you
nice.
should be proud of it. Like a portfolio, come on, sí.
Que sí, que sí.
And what is more important, something elegant.
Yes, always elegant. Always you have to be elegant.
Idoia is very obsessed with that, right? Yeah. Be elegant.
No, but it's nice.
Like Anna, she just changed herself. She's elegant now.
Yeah, sorry. I'm a bit in a hurry.
No, but I mean, it's super nice, no? And for sure that all of you are like feeling that, oh, I didn't have so much time. For sure that you would have done even a greater analysis or a greater job if you had more time. But I mean, time is what it is, no? But congratulations, because all the different projects were super nice and super interesting and different. And presenting in a really different way as well, which makes everything super multi, no?
Sí.
So, what is
Anyone want to add something else?
Thank you, Idoia. You were key to our success, I have to say, because you had the biggest patience ever.
Yes.
Un aplausito para Idoia.
Thank you, Idoia.
¡Bravo! ¡Un
Bueno, sí.
Maybe the other one.
Let's have a drink together during September. No?
Yes. And also, I would like to ask you if you can wait for a couple of days before erasing all the content in the Google Classroom.
Days, don't worry.
In the
Classroom. No, you always leave it like at least a month there.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, ciao. Nice to meet you.
We know where you live.
We will be doing the alumni program, and you have to do a LinkedIn article, a Medium article for each project.
Claro.
Super raw. I mean, like doing research for this project, you see like a lot of articles on Medium that are related to data science and all that. And that also helps to build your professional credibility in that field and stuff like that. So
yes,
I'm gonna do mine. I suggest you do yours.
Ladies, I must leave now. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, Ana.
Bye. Bye.
Que sí, eso, ¿no? Dual medium. In fact, one of the students from the data science courses was analyzing the situation in Belarus. Well, not the situation, Also, she was scrapping tweets, so social media and so on, and she was like doing a really deep analysis about the situation and etc. And she managed to publish one Medium article. I mean, está muy bien. And it's pretty nice.
She won like something. She won something. Someone published her article. Yes.
Could be. Sí, sí. So if you want, I can send you the link. Just if you have it like as a template or a motivation or whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope that silence is yes, we're going to do it.
Thank you.
Yes, we will think about it.
You will share the recorded presentation tomorrow?
Yes. So soon you will be receiving your certificate, and also I will be posting the recorded session in Classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Gracias, chicas. Gracias.
Thank you. Bye.
Gracias, chicas.
Bye, bye.
Bye.
Vamos a hablarlo,
Una birra.
Sí.
Bye, Python. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.